we're still a few minutes early.
Feels like.
No, we've got 5 whole minutes here to just joke around and.
I say I'm used to the need to be 15 minutes early everywhere.
Wow. Gotta be careful you're not too early.
I don't know. This point I'll take it. I've had my fun.
There's fun in this? I don't know.
Supposedly. That's what I'm told.
I like Jim Gaffigan, is it? Or Jeff Gaffigan? Whatever his name is. Jim. He's hilarious. He talks about women have the ability to grow a baby inside themselves. And then they have the ability to push it out. And then they can feed it. And it's not like men don't have anything to do with all of this. They do. They spend about 2 minutes doing what they love thinking about all the time. That's kind of a racy joke, I think. But Jim Gaff, Family Guy. So 4 minutes. That only took 1 minute. That's nothing. Still got a whole bunch more to do. God bless you. Third time's the charm. I don't know why though. That's like the question on the music. Really, I guess is where it ties in. Asking how Augustine's theory of music, which yes, it connects us to the divine, whereas Plotinus seems to think that the music primarily connects us to the spiritual world, which because he's into math and he's convinced that music is mathematics personified, or however you want to describe it. It's primarily mathematical.
That's Pythagorean school, isn't it?
Pythagoras, yes. The divided line theory for him, instead of the divided line with Plato, where you get different kinds of knowledge, with Pythagoras, the divided line concerns the harmonies, so that, if you take a string and you divide it, you get these harmonies, which of course are part of our whole music business. And he's aware of that, and thinking that music is part of what, of course, runs the universe, basically. So if you're and that's mathematical, because the harmonies are mathematical in the way they work. So the whole connection of mathematics. So threes, nines, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, all of those seem to be something physically characteristic of the universe, and our way of understanding that, through the study of mathematics and music. And so literally, and what's neat is if you study the contemporary analyses of how music affects us and how music affects the brain. You've got one book is titled "This Is Your Brain on Music." Just like that old commercial. This is your brain on drugs. I think it was. Yeah, it was something like that. They throw the eggs into the frying pan to give you an indication. It's not a good thing. But this is your brain on music. It's neat. And then there's a couple other books out that were really fascinating, but learning that our brains kind of operate at 4 hertz, and it's you actually have like musical waves in your head. An individual that has ADD and is distracted constantly has kind of like static, but a person that's able to concentrate on something has like a straightforward musical wave going through. And when you're listening to music, the musical waves literally change the musical waves in your brain so that you match the mood of the music. So if you're listening to music in a minor key, you're kind of sad. If it's a major key, you're kind of happy. And so unless you reject it. So if you don't like the music and you kind of decide you're not going to listen to it, you can block that. But then the other thing is these lights operate at 4 hertz, which is the same wavelength that our brain works at, and these leak. And so theoretically, these lights could be interfering with our ability to think. These kind of lights, and yet every classroom on the campus has them.
That's because suprachiasmatic nucleus, how light affects our brain. I learned a little bit about that in psychology.
I just finished reading the Dan Brown book, The Secret of Secrets, and his main interest, The Secret of Secrets, is actually consciousness through the book. And his main love interest is the other main character is a neuroscientist, a noeticist, and so her focus is on consciousness. And of course, the CIA is involved.
Yeah. Is there a
Fun.
conspiracy?
Oh, absolutely, of course. Okay, so the one quiz question that I wanted to talk a little bit about was the free will question. Do you have free will? And I liked your responses in general. It's kind of, but remember to use the model dependent realism model, which is it's a model itself, right? It's kind of a meta model. But if you use that, you realize that what Augustine is doing, and it was neat driving in on the Glen Highway and seeing Mount St. Augustine huge on the other side of Anchorage this morning. But what Augustine is doing is presenting you really with 2 models. The one model is God's mind must know everything, all at once. And the other model is the model of our finite human nature. And we can only see things moment by moment. So it looks to us like our relationship with God means that God is changing as well as we are. But remember, that's our impression, that's our perception of God, and not God's actual model has to be one where God is unchanging, omniscient, knows everything, created everything, beneficent. All those things that the medievals are now going to start saying. This is the characteristic of God, which comes, of course, from Plato, but at the same time you get the scripture, and he's trying to, So think about it, and that's why I like Daniel Dennett's more contemporary way of talking about freedom as freedom evolves, because if I gave you the link to his lecture on his book, he's talking about models. Really, he's defending this model that thinks of us as having free will, and even more free will now than ever. I mean, you're a little kid, mom puts oatmeal in front of you, that's what you get, right? You can eat it or not. But now today you go into Freddy's and look how many cereal options you have for breakfast. It's outrageous. You end up with what Malcolm Gladwell calls the paralysis of choice. You've got so many choices, you get stuck. I love seeing, whenever I'm in Freddy's and I see husbands standing there on the phone asking the wife, which one did you make? Because they're lost. Too much fun. So in a sense, freedom, we've got more freedom now than we ever have. Contrast Daniel Dennett, though, with someone like Robert Sapolsky. Robert Sapolsky gives us, just recently, his book, determined.
You know, I found out yesterday he's a determinist.
Yes. He's got good hair though. But basically he takes a tack that's very similar to a book. So he basically argues that we're completely determined. You know, science. You know, you take the model of science. There's no miracles allowed in science. You can't have, you know, cause, effect, cause, miracle, and then, you know, no, you're not allowed to do that in science. That model doesn't allow it. Everything has to be cause and effect, deterministic. So if you're taking that model, of course, there is no such free will. It makes no sense. So that's the way he looks at it. And he argues basically that thinking that we are free agents and therefore can be punished is a terrible way to treat people, because it's not their fault that they're doing what they're doing. They're only doing what they're determined to do. So if you're going to fix the situation, you shouldn't be punishing people. You should instead change the things that cause that kind of behavior. It reminds me of when I was a kid. We had B.F. Skinner, and it was called Beyond Freedom and Dignity. And his argument there was that almost exactly the same thing, and that was he's a behaviorist. He's the one doing the pigeons, you know. And I remember the little comic of the pigeons talking with one another, and the one pigeon says, "I've got this guy trained. Every time I push that button, he gives me food." You know. But he was also neat because he started hippie communes. The biggest one was in Washington, D.C. area, and he even visited that. He didn't actually live in them himself, but they invited him, and he sat there inside the commune with a bunch of hippies and their free love babies, and that was neat. But he was into behaviorism. So you don't punish somebody. What you do is behavior modify a person, right? So you figure out what's the cause and effect relationship, and if you want to change the behavior, what you have to do is change the stimulus or whatever causes that behavior, and then that behavior goes away, theoretically. So that was it. So my suggestion is, if we follow someone like Daniel Dennett, and actually I do like the quantum stuff, even though he doesn't, to think of this as models. We have different models that we use, just like we have the model of, while I'm driving in here, it's a flat Earth, you know. I'm not counting, the speed that the Earth is spinning, and that this and that. No, I'm just, the ground is stable and flat, and I'm driving on it. That's how I'm thinking about it while I'm coming in. I'm not going to get involved in all the other complexity. By the way, anybody following the 3-eye atlas? The motion of the 3-eye atlas?
I haven't even heard of it.
NASA has found 3 is the third one that's interstellar. So we have a comet that's entered into the solar system.
Bigger than anything we've seen. Not acting like a comet. And now the sun's shooting radiation directly at it.
It looks like it's
There's arguments.
technologically made. It's
Yeah,
not.
they're saying that there's some kind of planet starter, civilization starter, where it's supposed to spread seeds. That's the newest one.
Well, yeah, there's lots, but it definitely is an unusual thing. And the neatest thing I heard was that on its tail, about 1 million miles further away, is another one that looks just like it and is following it exactly. which like, But the 3I Atlas is supposed to kind of rendezvous with Mars, which is interesting. And the other one, if the timing is right, as it's entering into the solar system, would be rendezvousing with Earth. So that's interesting.
Tectonic creations.
However,
On a stick.
so Augustine, by the way, also did kind of important. I don't want to skip this. I should mention his tomb. So you can actually see his tomb in one of the churches in Italy. So they shipped his body from Hippo when he died